Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy Trevor coming at you live from, well, not the DRC, obviously. We're talking about the Democratic Republic of Congo, a country with a name longer than a CVS receipt, and history even more complicated. This is the DRC we're talking about, a land so rich in resources it makes Scrooge McDuck look like a pauper. Problem is, this abundance of riches has a nasty habit of attracting some unwanted attention. So buckle up, kids, because we're about to embark on a wild ride, even the heart of complicated. This is the DRC we're talking about, a land so rich in resources it makes Scrooge McDuck look like a pauper. Problem is, this abundance of riches has a nasty... All right, let's get real for a second. Attracting some unwanted... The concept in the DRC... So buckle up, kids, because we're about to embark on a... It's been simmering for even the heart of complicated. Like a pot of... This is the DRC we're talking about. Post-colonial struggles, land so rich in resources it makes an internal duck like a pauper. Remember Mobutu Sese Problem is this leopard print hats and kleptocracy. So the one let's get us real spilled over, adding fuel to the concept in the DRC. So buckle up, kids, and Tutsi were about militia. It's been simmering for even the heart. Like on this is the DRC we're adding to the chaos. Post-colonial land so rich in resources state makes an internal leaving the Congolese to pick up the pieces. Remember Mobutu Sese Problem is this leopard print hats and kleptocracy. Now, we can't talk about the DRC conflict without addressing the elephant in the room, or should I say, the diamond in the warlord's pocket. The DRC is a treasure trove of natural resources, from the coltan in your smartphone to the cobalt in your electric car battery. But here's the catch-22. These resources, instead of being a blessing, have become a curse. They've fueled the conflict, lining the pockets of rebel groups and corrupt officials while leaving the Congolese people stuck in a cycle of poverty and violence. It's like winning the lottery and then having your ticket stolen by a pack of hyenas. These conflict minerals have become a hot commodity on the international market, funding militias and fueling human rights abuses. We're talking child soldiers, forced labor, and violence against women. The kind of stuff that would make even the most hardcore diamond enthusiasts think twice. So, the next time you're admiring your shiny new phone or electric car, spare a thought for the human cost of these technological marvels. Because behind the sleek design and fancy features, there's a dark underbelly of exploitation and conflict. Okay, so we've established that the DRC is a mess. But why should you, dear viewer, even care? Well, for starters, we're all connected in this global village we call Earth. What happens in the DRC doesn't stay in the DRC. It has ripple effects across the entire continent and beyond. Think of it like this. The DRC is like the heart of Africa. And right now, that heart is in bad shape. It's been through the ringer, and it needs our attention if we want the rest of the body to function properly. A destabilized DRC means a destabilized Africa, which in turn impacts global security, trade, and even your morning cup of coffee. Remember those supply chain issues we all experienced during the pandemic? Yeah, well, imagine that on steroids. So, yeah, this is not a drill, people. The DRC conflict is a global issue that demands a global response. But before we get into all that, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with your friends, family, and that one uncle who still thinks Africa is a country. We'll be right back to break down the players in this geopolitical game of chess. All right, fam, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the DRC conflict, we got to rewind the tape a bit. Picture this: pre-colonial Congo, a land teeming with lush rainforests, mighty rivers, and enough natural wealth to make even the greediest colonizer drool. We're talking a land so rich they used to call it the jewel of Africa. The people were vibing, living their best lives with diverse cultures, languages and traditions. You had kingdoms and empires popping up like new startups in Silicon Valley, each with their own swag and way of doing things. Think of it like a real-life Wakanda, but with less vibranium and more, actual history. But then came the Europeans with their boats, their Bibles, and their insatiable thirst for, everything. They saw the Congo, and their eyes turned into dollar signs, kind of like how I look at a plate of freshly fried plantains. The Berlin Conference of 1884 was like the ultimate game of risk, with European powers carving up Africa like a birthday cake. And guess what? The Congo, with all its riches, became the personal property of one King Leopold II of Belgium. Talk about bad luck. Now, this King Leopold guy, he wasn't exactly known for his chill vibes. He ruled the Congo, or should I say whip. See, rubber was all the rage back then, essential for those newfangled bicycles and automobiles. And Leopold, he wanted in on that action. He turned the Congo into his own personal piggy bank, forcing the Congolese people to harvest rubber under the most brutal conditions imaginable. We're talking amputations, floggings and mass killings, all in the name of profit. This wasn't colonialism, it was straight-up barbarism. Millions of Congolese people lost their lives under Leopold's reign of terror. It was so bad that even other European powers were like, yo dude, this is messed up, even for us. Finally, in 1908, Leopold was forced to hand over control of the Congo to the Belgian government, but the damage was done. Leopold's reign of terror left the Congo deeply scarred, its people traumatized, and its economy in ruins. It's like that friend who borrows your car and returns it with an empty tank, a dented bumper, and a suspicious smell. Fast forward to the 1960s, the era of Afrobeats, bell-bottoms and independence movements sweeping across the continent. The Congo, like many African nations, was finally shaking off the shackles of colonialism. But as we all know, with great freedom comes great, complications. Patrice Lumumba, a charismatic young leader, emerged as the first Prime Minister of the newly independent Congo. He had big dreams for his country, talking about unity, progress, and telling those meddling foreign powers to back off. But Lumumba's vision didn't sit well with everyone, especially not the Belgians, who weren't too keen on giving up their cash cow. And then there was the whole Cold War thing, with the US and the Soviet Union vying for influence in Africa. In a move that would make even Lumumba was ousted in a coup backed by, you guessed it, the Belgians and the CIA. He was assassinated shortly after, and the Congo was plunged into chaos. With Lumumba out of the picture, a dude named Mobutu Sese Seko seized power in a military coup. Remember that dictator with the leopard print hats I mentioned earlier? Yeah, that's him. Mobutu, he was a real piece of work. He renamed was his ability to play different factions against each other, keeping the country in a perpetual state of instability. It was a strategy that served him well, but it left the Congo deeply divided. Now, we can't talk about the DRC conflict without mentioning the Rwandan genocide of 1994. This horrific event was slaughtered in a matter of months, sent shockwaves across the region, and had a devastating impact on the DRC. See, after the genocide, many of the perpetrators, the Hutu Interahamwe militia, fled across the border into eastern Congo, bringing their violence and instability with them. They set up shop in the dense jungles, terrorizing local populations and further destabilizing the region. To make matters worse, the Rwandan government, led by the Tutsi Paul Kagame, pursued the Hutu militia into Congo, sparking a whole new wave of violence. It was like a house fire that spread to the neighbor's yard, engulfing everything in its path. The Rwandan genocide and its aftermath added a whole new layer of complexity to the DRC conflict. You had different armed groups fueled by ethnic tensions, competing for control of land, resources and power. It was a recipe for disaster, and things quickly spiraled out of control. Mobutu, weakened and facing internal rebellion, was finally ousted in 1997. Laurent Desire Kabila, a former rebel leader, took over, but his rule was short-lived. He was assassinated in 2001 and his son Joseph Kabila took charge. Joseph Kabila, despite promising peace and stability, ended up ruling for almost 2 decades, marked by corruption, human rights abuses and, you guessed it, more conflict. It was like a broken record player stuck on repeat, playing the same tragic tune over and over again. And that, my friends, brings us to the present day, where the DRC remains trapped in a cycle of violence, poverty and instability. But don't despair just yet, because in the next act, we'll explore the key players in this geopolitical game of chess and see if there's any hope for a brighter future. Stay tuned. All right, folks, let's talk about the Congolese government. Imagine trying to juggle chainsaws while riding a unicycle on a tightrope over a pit of angry hippos. That's kind of what it's like trying to govern the DRC. You've got President Felix Tshisekedi, who came to power in 2019, promising change. Now, I'm not saying he's the Congolese Obama, but people had hope, you know. He's trying to tackle corruption, improve infrastructure, and bring some semblance of order to this chaotic country. But here's the thing. Governing the DRC is like trying to herd cats. You've got a vast country with weak institutions, rampant corruption, and more armed groups than you can shake a stick at. It's enough to make even the most well-intentioned leader pull their hair out. And let's not forget about the legacy of mistrust left by previous regimes. After decades of dictatorship and exploitation, many Congolese people are understandably skeptical of any government, no matter how well-meaning they might be. Now let's talk about the other guys, the rebel groups. See, in the DRC, starting a rebel group is like starting a small business. It's got a low barrier to entry, and there's always a market for, shall we say, alternative security providers. You've got over 120 different armed groups roaming around, each with their own agendas, ideologies, military fatigues. Some are fighting for political power. others for control of resources, and some just like blowing stuff up. It's like a real-life Mad Max movie, but with less gasoline and more child soldiers. These groups thrive on chaos and instability, preying on vulnerable populations and making life a living hell for ordinary Congolese people. They're like that annoying mosquito buzzing around your ear. You can try to swat it away, but it just keeps coming back. And here's the kicker. Many of these groups are funded by, wait for it, the very resources they're fighting over. It's a vicious cycle of violence and exploitation, with the Congolese people caught in the crossfire. Now, among these rebel groups, there's one that deserves special mention, the M23. These guys are like the VIPs of the Congolese rebel scene. They've got the guns, the organisation, and the international backing to really cause some trouble. The M23, short for March 23rd Movement, has been wreaking havoc in eastern Congo for over a decade. They claim to fight for the rights of Congolese Tutsis, but let's be real, they're mostly interested in power and money. What makes the M23 particularly dangerous is their alleged support from neighbouring Rwanda. See, Rwanda and the DRC have a long and complicated history, with accusations of proxy wars and meddling in each other's affairs. The Rwandan government denies any involvement with the M23, but the evidence suggests otherwise. It's like that friend who borrows your clothes and then denies it, even though you can see the tag sticking out. Speaking of neighbours, the DRC is kind of like that one house on the block with the leaky roof and the overgrown lawn. Everyone's worried about it, but nobody wants to deal with it directly. You've got Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi and others, all with their own interests and agendas in the DRC. They've got troops operating across the border, allegedly fighting rebel groups, but also, let's be honest, helping themselves to a piece of the Congolese pie. It's like a regional game of risk, with each country trying to outmaneuver the other and gain control of strategic territory and resources. And the Congolese people? They're the ones stuck on the game board, pawns in a geopolitical chess match they never signed up for. This regional dimension adds a whole new layer of complexity to the conflict, making it to find a lasting solution. It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while blindfolded and riding a roller coaster. Now, in the midst of all this chaos and violence, you've got the United Nations trying to keep the peace. They've got a massive peacekeeping force in the DRC, the largest in the world, in fact, costing billions of dollars a year. But here's the problem. Peacekeeping in the DRC is like trying to put out a forest fire with a water pistol. You've got a vast country, limited resources, and often unclear and ineffective. The UN peacekeepers are often caught between a rock and a hard place, trying to protect civilians while also avoiding getting bogged down in a conflict they can't win. It's a thankless job, and despite their best efforts, the situation in the DRC remains dire. Some argue that the UN needs a more robust mandate with more troops and resources to effectively address the root causes of the conflict. Others say that the UN's presence is part of the problem, propping up a corrupt government and prolonging the conflict. And let's not forget about the elephant in the room, or should we say the coltan mine in the conflict zone. The DRC is incredibly rich in natural resources. We're talking diamonds, gold, copper, cobalt, coltan. All the good stuff that makes your smartphone vibrate and your electric car run. But this abundance of wealth, instead of being a blessing, has become a curse. These conflict minerals have fueled the fighting, lining the pockets of warlords and corrupt officials while leaving the Congolese people mired in poverty. It's a classic case of the resource curse. Countries with abundances often off than those without. It's like winning the lottery and then having your entire family try to claim a share, leaving you broke and miserable. Addressing this resource curse is crucial to finding a lasting solution to the DRC conflict. That means cracking down on illegal mining, promoting transparency and accountability in the mining sector. Headache too. Imagine a house party, right? Everyone's invited. Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, even Chad's in the corner trying to blend in. Good vibes, right? Suddenly, a fight breaks out, dishes crash, folks scattering. That's the DRC conflict messing up the whole African vibe. This ain't just about borders on a map. It's about interconnectedness, like that one long extension cord everyone uses. Instability in the DRC, it sends shockwaves, those economic disruptions, even those armed groups, they get ideas, start looking at other countries like a buffet. Remember Ebola, that outbreak a while back? Conflict zones make it hard to contain stuff like that. It's like trying to put out a fire while someone's chucking gasoline on it. Let's talk money, folks. DRC, it's like that friend with mad potential. Aced all their classes, could be a millionaire. But they keep making bad decisions. This country's bursting with resources, minerals everyone wants. Fertile land should be rolling in dough. But the conflict is like trying to run a business in a war zone. Investors scared off, infrastructure crumbling, farmers can't farm if there's a chance of getting caught in a crossfire. And the people, many living below the poverty line despite the wealth beneath their feet. It's like having a diamond mine in your backyard but still gotta hustle for scraps. The conflict creates this messed up system where a few profit but the majority suffer. This ain't about just the DRC though. When one African nation struggles, it can drag down the whole continent's economic growth. It's like a team project. One member slacking off, everyone gets a bad grade. Real fam. Behind all the politics and economics, there are real people caught in the crossfire. Millions of Congolese people have been forced to flee their homes, becoming refugees in their own country or seeking safety across borders. Imagine having to pack up your life, leave everything you know and love behind, all because some warlord with a superiority complex and a penchant for violence decided to make your neighborhood his personal playground. It's heartbreaking, man. These refugees, they end up in overcrowded camps, often lacking basic necessities like food, water and medicine. Kids grow up without proper education, families torn apart, and the trauma of what they've witnessed, it stays with them. This displacement puts a strain on neighbouring countries too. Resources stretch thin, tensions flare up, and suddenly you've got a humanitarian crisis on your hands. It's like a ripple effect, spreading the pain far and wide. Remember that house party gone wrong? Well, the DRC conflict, it's got this nasty habit of spilling over into neighbouring countries. Armed groups, they don't respect borders, they see an opportunity, they take it. It's like a contagious disease, spreading instability and violence across the region. You've got Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, all grappling with their own internal, and the DRC conflict just adds fuel to the fire. This creates a vicious cycle. Instability in one country breeds instability in another, making it harder for everyone to achieve peace and prosperity. It's like trying to put out a wildfire while someone keeps lighting matches nearby. And let's not forget about the human cost. Innocent people caught in the crossfire, regional economies disrupted, and the dream of a peaceful and prosperous Africa fading further into the distance. The DRC conflict is not just about the present, it's about the future too. Imagine a whole generation of young people robbed of their education, their dreams, their chance to build a better tomorrow. Conflict steals opportunities, it steals hope, it steals lives. It's like that bully in school who keeps tripping you up every time you try to get ahead. Think about it. The DRC could be a powerhouse, a beacon of prosperity and innovation in Africa, but instead it's stuck in this endless cycle of violence and instability, unable to reach its full potential. And it's not just the DRC that loses out, the whole world loses out. We lose out on the contributions that the Congolese people could be making to science, art, technology, and so much more. Now, before we get too bummed out, let's talk about solutions. See, as hopeless as the situation might seem, there's always hope. But it's going to take a collective effort, fam. We need to address the root causes of the conflict. That means tackling corruption, promoting good governance, and investing in sustainable development. It's about creating a system where everyone has a stake in peace and prosperity. We need to support regional initiatives aimed at promoting dialogue and cooperation. It's about getting those neighbours talking to each other, working together to address their common challenges. And we need to hold those responsible for human rights abuses accountable. Justice and reconciliation are essential for healing the wounds of the past and building a more peaceful future. It's not going to be easy, but it's a fight worth fighting. After all, investing in peace is always a smarter choice than funding conflict. All right, fam, we've journeyed through the heart of the DRC conflict, and let's be real, it's a lot to unpack. It's like trying to summarize a season of Real Housewives. There's drama, there's betrayal, and everyone's fighting over something shiny. But here's the thing, there's no quick fix, no magic wand we can wave to make the problems disappear. It's going to take a whole lot of effort, a whole lot of collaboration, and a whole lot of patience to turn things around. Imagine trying to untangle a giant knot of headphones after they've been in your pocket all day. That's the DRC conflict, a complex web of issues with no easy solutions. But hey, just because it's complicated, it doesn't mean we give up. As we say on The Daily Show, if it was easy, someone else would have done it already. Remember all those resources we talked about? Diamonds, coltan, cobalt? The stuff that makes your phone light up and your electric car go vroom? Well, those resources are both a blessing and a for the DRC. On the one hand, they have the potential to lift millions out of poverty and fuel economic development. It's like having a winning lottery ticket, except the prize is shared by the entire country. On the other hand, those resources have fueled the conflict, lining the pockets of warlords and corrupt officials while leaving ordinary Congolese people struggling to survive. It's like that friend who borrows pays you back, except in this case, the friend is a war criminal. So, what's the solution? We got to make sure those resources are being used for good, not for evil. That means cracking down on illegal mining, promoting transparency and accountability in the mining sector, and making sure the Congolese people will benefit from their own wealth. Now, I know what you're thinking. Trevor, this is all heavy stuff. What can I, a regular person sitting here with my popcorn, actually do about it? Well, my friend, you'd be surprised. You see, change doesn't always happen from the top down. Sometimes it starts with ordinary people, everyday heroes, working tirelessly to make their communities a little bit better. In the DRC, there are countless individuals and organizations working tirelessly to build peace. They're mediating conflicts, providing humanitarian aid, promoting education, and empowering women and young people. These are the real MVPs, the unsung heroes who deserve our support. So next time you're scrolling through social media, take a break from the cat videos and check out some of these amazing organizations. Donate, volunteer, spread the word. Every little bit helps. Now, let's be real. The DRC conflict, it hasn't always gotten the international attention it deserves. It's like that friend who's always going through something, but everyone's too busy with their own drama to notice. But we can't afford to ignore this crisis any longer. What happens in the DRC doesn't stay in the DRC. It affects the entire region, the entire continent, and ultimately the entire world. We need global leaders to step up, to use their influence and resources to push for peace and stability in the DRC. That means diplomatic pressure, economic sanctions against those who profit from the conflict, and support for peacekeeping efforts. Remember, folks, silence is complicity. We can't just sit back and watch as innocent people suffer. We need to speak out, to demand action, and to hold those in power accountable. The DRC conflict is a symptom of a larger problem, the systematic underdevelopment and marginalization of Africa by the global community. For too long, Africa has been seen as a source of problems, not a source of solutions. But here's the truth. Africa is not a continent of poverty, disease and conflict. Africa is a continent of immense potential, a continent of vibrant cultures, resilient people and abundant resources. What Africa needs is not charity but partnership. It needs investment, not exploitation. It needs support, not interference. Investing in Africa's future means investing in education, healthcare, infrastructure and good governance. It means creating opportunities for young people, empowering women and fostering economic growth that benefits everyone. The DRC conflict, it's a tragedy. There's no sugarcoating it. Darkness, hope. There's hope in the resilience of the Congolese people who have endured so much, yet continue to strive for a better future. There's hope in the work of countless individuals and organizations dedicated to building peace and justice. And there's hope in the knowledge that we, as a global community, have the power to make a difference. We can choose to turn away from the suffering, or we can choose to confront it. We can choose to remain silent, or we can choose to raise our voices. The choice is ours. And on that note, my friends, I'm going to leave you with a little homework. No, you don't have to write an essay or solve a complex geopolitical equation. Your assignment is simple. Stay informed, stay engaged, and stay hopeful. Keep learning about the DRC, keep talking about it, and keep pushing for change. And most importantly, don't forget to laugh. Laughter is a powerful tool, my friends. It helps us cope with the absurdity of it all, and it reminds us of our shared humanity. So go out there, spread the word, make a difference, and never lose your sense of humor. And hey, while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more informative and entertaining content. Peace out.